presented by Bet365. We are kicking off the Power Hour, the NFL, the only NFL pregame show with all the stuff you care about, none of the stuff you don't. I am Chad Millman. Over the next 30 minutes, my Action Network buddies, Sean Koerner, Simon Hunter, Chris Raybon, will try to convince me what player props, what sides, what totals, all the bets I should play today. Plus, we have Evan Abrams with market reports and trends that make you sound smarter than your friends at the bottom half of the hour. Gilles Gallant, Brian Matthews, Charlie Disturco will take us through the touchdown show, previewing the best touchdown props on the board this week. Don't forget, you must RSVP for the wild card weekend events we have sponsored by our friends at Bet365. Saturday, January 13th, we got a watch party, Shepherd and the Knucklehead, starting at 4 p.m. Koerner's going to be there. Raybon's going to be there. Stuckey's going to be there. I will be there. It's going to be a blast the next day, January 14th. Same location, same times, plus a live podcast. Me and Simon will do a favorites watch party. Then Simon and I go live at 7:30. Free drinks, free entry, free sweating of all the bets that we'll be betting together. RSVP in the description page for this show. A reminder, if you're watching this show, like and subscribe to the Action Network YouTube page. Plus, don't forget, download the app. All the picks that we're talking about available in the award-winning Action Network app. Also, bet sync your Bet365 bets with the Action app. It's the coolest, slickest way to track your picks with ease and speed. Click the My Accounts button in the My Action tab in the Action app. All right, let's get into it, guys. Last show of 2023. Sean Koerner, give us your player prop.
Yeah, so let's go with Pat Freiermuth over 2.5 receptions. You can get it at minus what? Do you not know who that is, Chad? Do you?
No, I know who he is, but it's just funny.
Okay. Well, I'm glad I'm here to entertain you, but I just think this is a great time to buy low on the tight end. Last week he saw 0 targets despite running around on 80% of Mason Rudolph's dropbacks. It's hard to get receptions when George Pickens goes off for nearly 200 yards. He had 2 touchdowns longer than 65 yards. So I think that was one of the main reasons Freiermuth didn't see any catches. But I think this is a great spot for him to get back on track. The Seahawks use zone coverage at the second highest rate. Freiermuth sees a target rate jump against zone coverage. He sees a target 14% of the time against man, but that goes up to 21% against zone. Plus, 67% of his routes are curls and outs, and the Seahawks have allowed a 92% catch rate to curls and outs to opposing tight ends, which is the second highest rate. So I think he's going to get some easy catches here. 2.5 is a very low number. He cleared this 4 straight games before this, including, a 9-catch game. So this is a great spot to buy low. I'm showing him with about a 62% chance to clear 2.5.
I know who the starting tight end is for the Pittsburgh Steelers. It's the name that always makes me laugh. Like, I just wasn't expecting, expecting you to say Pat Freiermuth, and I never see, you don't put in your prop in the in the script because
right.
People go start betting it and change the number. All right, Simon. By the way, that Seahawks number had been sitting at 3.5 all week, and then all of a sudden, the past 24 hours, jumping up to Seahawks minus 4.5. Simon Hunter, what's your prop?
Chad, going McCaffrey, anytime touchdown, 2 touchdowns. It's a play I usually don't make. I usually don't love betting something this juiced up, but this is such a narrative play where the 49ers, this is a bounce back game against Washington, one of the worst run defenses in all football, but it's really about Kyle Shanahan here and how much he's talked about how important McCaffrey's been to this team, how they're not going to change his playing ways these last 2 weeks here. Like they said, we're not going to let him take the foot off the gas. We're going to keep playing McCaffrey. We're still going to give him 20 touches a game. It's proved out. These last couple of weeks, they haven't really reeled back his touches. They keep feeding him. And, not that he knows the narrative around getting MVP, but he's talked about it. He knows it's a numbers award. He knows that McCaffrey's at the top right now, and he knows he needs to keep feeding him. So, this is really a bet trusting Kyle Shanahan that he's not going to take the foot off the gas with McCaffrey. If you look at McCaffrey this year, it's all about the rushing touchdowns, but it's really to hit this, we're going to need a receiving touchdown. And in this matchup, against a team that's given up over 100 yards on the ground per game through running backs. They also can be beat through the air. They don't have linebackers that can cover a guy like McCaffrey. So the fact that it's only minus 115, Chad, I like that value. I think it feels like it's a guarantee we're going to get a touchdown in the first half. So we'll just be waiting the rest of the game to get another one. I like the value here on McCaffrey. I like the play on Shanahan, knowing this is for MVP, trying to feed him, getting the numbers. This is just a classic play at the end of the season that, just like CeeDee Lamb yesterday, like I bet CeeDee Lamb's over receiving yards. It's just like this team wants to feed him, right? They know how close he was to beating Mike Irvin's record. The same kind of goes for McCaffrey. It's like they know what needs to be done here for him to get MVP, and they know he needs touchdowns. So the fact that it's up to minus 115, I still would take that number, the over 2 touchdowns for McCaffrey.
Well, look, I love your thinking here. I would like Christian McCaffrey to win MVP. I would especially like him to win MVP now that our 9-1 Tyreek Hill to lead the league in receiving yardage bet is all of a sudden becoming a sweat because of how many yards CeeDee Lamb had yesterday. He's now got 10 more yards going in today's game than Tyreek Hill has on the season. So that's a very interesting play. I like the way you're thinking about it, going with the narrative. All right, Raybon, what do you got?
Chad, let's go with Van Jefferson under 12.5 receiving yards. This matchup against Chicago is tough. You know, they're allowing just a 49% catch rate to wide receivers over the last 3 games. Their defense has gotten a lot better. And Van Jefferson, he's a downfield, low percentage route runner. His average depth of target is just under 20. And, you know, we're going to see double-digit wind gusts in Chicago in this game. We're going to see potential snow in this game. So not necessarily the conditions for a downfield passing attack. He's been under this number in 60% of his games as a Falcon. He's had just 2 catches over his last 6 games and 1 catch over his last 4 games, and just averaging 6.9 yards per game with the Atlanta Falcons. More often than not, he just goes catchless in a game, and I think this is another one where that's a very real possibility. So Van Jefferson under 12.5 receiving yards.
I mean, I like all of these, to be honest. I think I'm going to go with Pat Freiermuth, and not just because it made me laugh. There was one stat in there, the idea of his what was it? His curls and
that's all he
curls
runs,
and
baby.
outs.
Those 2, yeah.
Curls and outs, 92%. You got me. Curls and outs. Let's go with Pat Freiermuth for our prop. All right, Koerner, kick us off with some sides.
So I'm going with the Bears minus 2.5. It's a little juicy. You might have to get it like minus 115, minus 120. But I like it there. And, you know, Raybon already mentioned it, but this forecast does call for higher winds. We could see winds, 15 to 20 miles per hour. Could see some snow. Not too much, though. But this is, 2 very run-heavy teams that will probably just lean on the run even more today. And I think that sets up perfectly for the Bears. Their defense ranks 3rd in DVOA against the run. Very good run defense. And I mentioned a handful of times now that this defense has been just much, much better since they acquired Montez Sweat back in week 9. So I think, the Falcons could struggle to put up points here. And Tyler Heineke, he's been dealing with an ankle injury this week. He's off the injury report, but it's something that could, compromise his mobility just a bit here. And I think that's going to be massive. And on the other side of the ball, the Falcons' run defense has been solid this year. They rank 5th in DVOA against the run, but they have struggled to quarterback runs. They're allowing a league high 8.4 yards per rush on QB runs this year. So that could be an issue when you're going up against Justin Fields. So I think they'll have room to run here. And the Bears will be getting back left guard Tevin Jenkins back this week. He missed last week due to the concussion. He's arguably their best offensive lineman. So I think that's going to be massive in what should be, a trench war here. So I like getting the Bears at minus 2.5 when the most likely outcome is probably the Bears win by 3. So I think it's critical to get the minus 2.5 where you can. But I like the Bears minus 2.5 here.
A lot of rumors in Chicago this week that the Bears are leaning towards keeping Matt Eberflus as the head coach, which could portend they're thinking about keeping Justin Fields as well to maintain some continuity. All right, Simon.
Chad, going the Dolphins +3. On this very show last week, we begged you people to take the Ravens in that spot against the 49ers. Same thing goes here with the Dolphins, taking them here against the Ravens. It's just such a letdown spot for this Ravens team. And what is Ravens' only real weakness on defense? It's against the run, Chad. But for them this season, they've gotten away with it because no teams have really run the ball against them, right? Because they're always kind of in a lead. I don't really see that being the case here with Miami. Miami is one of the best run blocking teams in all of football. I know it's a big deal that Mostert's out, right? But apparently it's not. The number moved from 3.5 down to 3 last night. So, yeah, as much as I want to be a reason that you shouldn't take this Dolphins team, it's a revolving door there at running back. It's really about the scheme. It's about all the guys that can fit in there that make that running back room work. Looking at this number, though, I'm shocked all the public money flooded in on this Ravens team. It just feels like they're kind of overlooking a Dolphins team that's played well all season, team that's led their division all season. Now they're catching a 3.5, 3 on the road against a Ravens team that, not that they're unproven, I just think it's a little bit of a buy. If you're buying high right now, if you're back on the Ravens here at home, it just feels like this is peak value of the Ravens this season, right? We got Lamar now. He's the lead for MVP. This is for the 1 seed. It's just all really hyped up right now for this team, where I just feel like the number shouldn't be this high. It shouldn't be 3.5, 3. It should probably be closer to 2.5, 2. So the fact this number's been bumped up just because they had such a big win last week against the 49ers just feels like a little bit of an overvalue for this Ravens team. And we've seen it, teams that play the 49ers, they usually struggle the following week, Chad. Since 2021, teams are 16-34 straight up, 18-30 against the spread after facing the 49ers. We talk a time that's such a physical team, they beat you up, right? We've seen that time and time again now. After teams face this 49ers team, they usually struggle. So the fact that you can still get 3.5 and a couple of books out there, I would go grab that right now. I don't think it's going to be there by kickoff.
Yeah, this is a find the 3.5 and bet the 3.5 number. Lamar is a favorite of more than 3. Jim Harbaugh is a favorite of more than 3. Both under 500 in their careers. Not a great spot for the Ravens when they are favorites at home of more than 3. All right, Raybon, talk to me.
Go with the Las Vegas Raiders +4 at the Indianapolis Colts. I think this Raider defense is being a little bit underrated by the market still. Since Antonio Pierce took over, this Raider defense is second in EPA per play, excluding turnovers, and number 1 against the run. And that's obviously really important when you're facing the Colts, because Jonathan Taylor is the centerpiece of their offense. He's going to have to do it all because no Zach Moss today. And Gardner Minshew, he's number 6 in most highest turnover worthy play rate. The other 5 quarterbacks with higher rates have all been benched. So I think this Colt team is still overachieving a little bit. They're well coached by Steichen, but overachieving a little bit. They're 8-7 despite a negative 18 point differential. And in terms of weighted total DVOA, which, weights the recent games a little bit more heavily, the Raiders are 15th and the Colts are 22nd. So the Raiders are the better team right now. Both teams are playing kind of backup caliber quarterbacks here. And I think this West Coast team traveling to the East is a little bit overrated by the market too. If you look at the numbers, anytime this has happened, West going East for a conference game spread within 6, so close matchups. The West Coast team traveling East, 49, 26, and 2, 65% against the spread over the last decade. So I think that this is too many points for this Raiders squad in what should be a pretty even matchup. So I like the Raiders +4.
Yeah, I like the Raiders a lot here too. That Bears game is so tricky, Koerner. But I got to tell you, this just feels like the spot for the Dolphins. And I want to stake my claim to one of the biggest games of the day. So let's go with the Dolphins at plus. I would say you got to get it at +3.5. Find that +3.5 for the Dolphins. All right. Most bet teams so far today, the San Francisco 49ers getting 74% of the bets versus the Washington Commanders. The Green Bay Packers, we're going to talk about the Sunday Night Football game later in the show, 73% of the bets versus the Vikings, and the Texans, they're getting 73% of the bets versus the Titans. All right, let's kick it off to my friend, Evan Abrams, with some really cool nuggets to make us feel better as we close out the year. Evan Abrams, what do you got?
And even to add on to it, San Francisco up to 78%, was as high as 80% a few minutes ago. So San Francisco money flooding the market. The interesting note about Green Bay, so just a 1-point dog, but opened about +3. Public dog's been doing well this year, about 56% against the spread. So maybe not such an awful thing. An interesting thing for all the games this week, the game today with the most betting tickets, really the most popular game when it comes to gambling money against the spread, etc. It's actually Rams Giants. So the interesting part's 97% of the tickets right now on the over, and it's actually been above 95% like all week. So over getting a ton of love, and it's been mentioned a lot in the show. In terms of wind, nothing crazy today. Chicago and Kansas City, probably the most with about 8 miles an hour each. And then New England, Buffalo, and Atlanta, Chicago, both going to see some rain, snow mix. So watch out there. And it's been talked about, even just tweeted about it. Bills Patriots spreads up to 14.5. That would be the biggest for a Bill Belichick coach team in his career. Browns, Patriots, regardless. The previous high was 14 in the Super Bowl against the Rams. Now, big number, what should you do? Well, New England's 4-10-1 against the spread this year. Terrible, but intriguing. They're 3-3-1 with a total below 40 and 2-1-1 with a spread of 7 or more. So Belichick tends to cover these numbers. We'll see what he can do with 14.5 in Buffalo today. And then finally, man, the NFC South has been absolutely terrible against opponents not in their division. 16-26 this year, 33-53 last 2 years, 51-80 last 3 years. The division is just terrible outside of it. That would be Atlanta at Chicago today and Carolina at Jacksonville with Beathard. So see if they can pull the covers out there, guys.
All right, Carolina's been an interesting team the past couple of weeks. Simon and I have been putting everything we got into the Carolina Panthers. Convince Me is presented by Bet365. Bet365 doesn't do ordinary. That's why you get more boosts with them than with anyone else. Every day they power up the odds on hundreds of bets to give you a chance to win more. Bet365 boosts specific markets, your winnings, and parlays. And they don't stop there. Keep an eye out for their biggest and best odds with the incredible Super Boosts. Check out the boost and see why it's never ordinary at Bet365. Must be 21 or older and present in Colorado, Iowa, New Jersey, Louisiana, Ohio, Virginia, or 18 and older in Kentucky. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER or 1-800-BETS-OFF in Iowa. Terms, conditions, restrictions apply. All right, everyone was talking about some wind and some impact of weather on some games. Koerner, is that going to impact your thoughts on totals?
Yeah, I mean, it's not a huge factor in this game, but I do like the under in the Patriots-Bills game. You can get it at 40. Some spots have 40.5, so line shop if you can. But as Evan mentioned, we should see, some potential rain, snow mix here. But I just like how these teams match up. The Bills defense has been playing much better lately. They held both the Chiefs and Cowboys with fewer than 20 points in weeks 14 and 15. They're getting back some key players on defense too. Micah Hyde's returning. Daquan Jones, I guess he's expected to return to action. So that's going to be a big boost to their defensive line. So after the Patriots, erupted for 26 points last week, I think they're going to just come back down to earth here, struggle to put up points against this Bills defense. And on the other side of the ball, we've seen this Bills offense become very run heavy under new offensive coordinator Joe Brady. Weeks 1 through 10 under Ken Dorsey, they were passing at the 11th highest rate in neutral situations. Since Joe Brady took over, they've been passing at the 6th lowest rate. So I'm expecting a very run heavy approach, especially, if and when they get up to a big lead. And the Patriots defense, they rank 2nd in DVOA against the run. So I think, the Bills run heavy approach will probably slow them down a bit here against the Patriots' good run defense. And Alan Eck is the ref for this game. This is actually his first season, and the under is 9-4 in his games. The under is cash in 8 straight games when his crew is reffing the game. And as I always say, when it comes to ref trends, they're usually all random. There's usually a reason, and I saw that his crew calls defensive holding, defensive pass interference at the lowest rate in the league. Which is a big factor why, his games tend to go under. So just one of many reasons why I do like the under in this game.
Listen, it wouldn't be a show if we didn't close out the year with a ref stat from Sean Koerner. Simon, listen, on the favorites this week, you talked about the Bills changing offensive philosophy since Joe Brady took over a lot more of a run-heavy offensive play calling strategy. So interesting that Koerner is bringing that up as well. Who is your favorite total?
I also say enjoy those ref stats, Chad. Pretty soon it's gonna be robots. I don't know how much longer we're gonna have these ref
Uh-oh.
stats.
Listen, no joke. The way that every single
Yeah.
week the refs are becoming the story is just ridiculous. And that Cowboy, obviously, we're talking about the Cowboys-Lions game where both players went up to the ref and the ref must have heard something or completely ignored something. And the impact that it had on that game, it's getting out of control. So you're not wrong.
Yeah, the only voice he heard was Goodell's voice in his earpiece, apparently. Here we go. Panthers, Jaguars under 37. This number has gone up a little bit. You can find 37. It might be 36.5 by our lovely sponsors here, but there's a couple of 37s out there, which is such a key number. I would shop around and try to find that. It's just purely fading these two quarterbacks. CJ Beathard, if you don't know who that is, good. You're very lucky. I bet on him in my past. Not today, thank God. And I'm fading him even more so on these under. In his career, he's 1-5 straight up. 1-5 against the spread. He's not good. He is a guy that he's not terrible between the 20s. He can move the ball, but he is horrible. His efficiency in the red zone is bad. And that's where he's going to struggle against this Panthers team that's so good in the red zone against most all offenses. So look at this matchup. I got CJ Beathard on one side, who's bad in the red zone, and Bryce Young, who's also terrible in the red zone. The Panthers, 29th in the league in points scored per game. 31st when they're on the road on points scored per game. They're just a bad team overall. Coming off a 30-point game the past week against Green Bay, it's just not going to be that easy for this Panthers team. I think they're going to struggle here against a Jaguars team that's desperate. They know they need this one. They know they need the defense to step up big. Goes for both teams here. Like the identity of Carolina too to me is their defense. So the fact I get to fade CJ Beathard and Bryce Young here in this spot and take the under, I got to do it. It's way too high. This number should be closer to 34 rather than 37. So love the value here in this underplay.
Yeah, that's going to be a corner TV game. It's truly, truly ugly. No one's watching that game unless you're betting that game. All right, Raybon, what's your total?
Let's go Giants Rams over 43.5. Both of these defenses are outside the top 20 in DVOA. Matthew Stafford's been playing really well for his last 14 touchdowns, no interceptions. He's also the number 6 graded quarterback against the blitz, which is important because the Giants blitz at the 3rd highest rate. And, this Ram team, with Stafford playing well, their last 5 games, the combined point totals have been 51, 55, 68, 48, 52, averaging just under 55 points. All 3 Giant cornerbacks, I think, are going to struggle here against, Nakua and Kupp and Demarcus Robinson. All 3 grade out 90th or worse at PFF. And, on the other side, the Giants starting Tyrod Taylor. That's a pretty significant upgrade over Tommy DeVito. Statistically, Taylor averaging just under 6 adjusted net yards an attempt and a sack rate of 8.5. Whereas DeVito, he was just above 4 adjusted net yards an attempt, and his sack rate was double what Taylor's is. So I think that this is another good environment for points. The weather shouldn't be too bad. So give me the Giants Rams over 43.5.
I mean, listen, despite your Tommy DeVito slander, this is the most bet, Evan just said, that one of the most bet sides or markets of the day, betting the over for the Giants and the Rams. I freaking love it. Give me all the overs I can get on the Giants and the Rams. The Rams have just been a juggernaut. And, we were talking a little bit about Sean McVay as a coach before we came on the air. The guy seems to be enjoying having this team and using Kyren Williams as a weapon. And we've seen the difference he's made since he came back from his injury. It's just been a much different team. I think it's helped with Stafford getting some relief. Also, Cooper Kupp being back. So, yeah, give me the Giants. Give me the Rams. Give me the over 43.5. Chris Raybon, nice work. All right, we talked a little bit about the Sunday night football game. We got the Packers. We got the Vikings. Another one of those games where the public is all over one side. In this case, it's the underdog. The game opened Minnesota -2. It's down to Minnesota -1. 73% of the bets, 80% of the money coming in on the Packers. The total is 43.5. Sean Koerner, what do you got?
Obviously, I'm going with a player prop, and this is my primetime prop for tonight, and it's Jordan Love over 22.5 completions. The Vikings defense is allowing a league high 25.2 completions per game. And Jordan Love is averaging 21.5 over the season. So just tacking on one completion usually isn't enough when it comes to this matchup. And it's sort of by design that, the Vikings use zone coverage at the 7th highest rate. They blitz at the highest rate. They seem okay, giving up easy completions underneath to kind of prevent downfield explosive plays. And so this is a matchup Love could take advantage of. His completion and catchable ball rate both go up against zone coverage and against the blitz. So, he's going to see the typical boost, maybe even more, when it comes to completions against the Vikings. He's also getting back his top target, Jaden Reed, today, who, he targets at a very high rate against zone coverage. He has a 70% catch rate on the season. So I look for them to, give him some quick, easy completions. And he's going to be without Christian Watson again, which is actually a positive for this market. Watson's more of a downfield target. He only has a 53% catch rate on the season. So all these things add up to me projecting Love closer to 24 completions with about a 60% chance he'll clear 22.5.
Love it. Love it. Jordan Love against the blitz. He's been very good. Been an impressive year for him in his first year as a full-time starter. Simon, please tell me what you're going to do with this game.
Chad, I can't believe it. I've ended up on this Vikings team in this spot. It's playing the number.
I can't believe it either.
I know. I'm really just playing the number where I don't really understand how this hasn't moved. Once the announcement came out that it was Jaron Hall starting quarterback for the Vikings, and this is a position you want to take. You want to back with the books. The books know something here. The fact this hasn't crossed them to be a dog. They're still favorites, despite Chad just told you all the money pounding this Green Bay team all week. It's a bad spot for Green Bay. It feels like the hype is really getting too high on this team and Jordan Love, where should their defense be really getting any type of respect? This is a defense that struggled mightily, especially down here down the stretch. They've gotten worse every week. Now they're down 2 top corners. It's a big deal playing against a Minnesota team as offense has played well all season, even though they've had just a revolving door quarterback. And now I factor in Brian Flores. This defense has struggled 2 straight weeks. This is a get-right spot at home against Jordan Love. They've already faced Jordan Love this season. They only give up 10 points to him. And it's a game where if you go back and watch, you really struggled with them throwing kind of random looks at the line at the start of the snap. So, the Vikings would bring up 7 guys at the line and then maybe only rush 3. And Jordan Love really couldn't handle that early in the season. Now, maybe he's made some growth and he's changed his last 2 months, but everything I've seen on tape by Jordan Love, he kind of needs the play to work perfectly, right? He needs the design to work out just right for it to work for him. Brian Flores is going to try to take that away. He's like one of the most blitz-happy teams in all football, this Vikings team. So just looking at the defensive side, the offensive side, I give the favorite to this Vikings team. So not shocked that it stayed at -1. I am shocked the public have come in so heavy on this Green Bay team. It just feels like a little scary of a spot to take this team on back-to-back road games.
I'm so upset. I'm not going to lie to you. You and I have talked about this game all week on the Favorites podcast. And when I opened the script this morning and saw you were on the Vikings, I'm like, oh my God. Raybon, please bring some sense to the world.
I mean, this is a tough one. I'm probably not going to have an official bet on this one, to be completely honest. But I would, when I look at a game and I see a lot of uncertainty and I see, it's kind of tough to handicap the lines about right, I'm going to take the point. So I'd lean Green Bay here. I mean, Matt LaFleur is 19-9 against the spread as an underdog. And I mean, last week, the Vikings got kind of shafted by the referees. And this week, Clay Martin is the referee and, road underdogs 62%. When he's the ref, underdogs period 60%. So I just wonder if the NFL maybe wants like the Packers over the Vikings or just the Vikings out with the quarterback situation as it is. And also I just really don't know what I'm going to get from Jaron Hall. At least when it was Josh Dobbs, Nick Mullins, we had something to go off of in the past. We've seen Nick Mullins be competent with the 49ers in that Shanahan offense. We've seen Josh Dobbs show flashes with the Arizona Cardinals, but Jaron Hall, we've only seen him really for about a quarter or, a drive or something like that. He looked okay, but we really don't know how he's going to play high pressure situation over the course of a full game. Division game, usually that favors the team that lost the first matchup because they can make adjustments here. So I would lean Green Bay +1 here.
What am I supposed to do here? I got Simon telling me on Sunday morning that he likes the Vikings because he's convinced the books know something. I got Raybon with a non-committal commitment to the Packers. And I love the Packers all week. So I kind of have to pick the Packers only because I've loved the Packers the entire week. I love the matchup for Jordan Love. He's proven to be good against the blitz. I don't want to bet on a third string quarterback who has played half a series before he was knocked out for a concussion. And I got my guys not giving me anything to hold on to. I got no handrail on the roller coaster. I got to go with my own beliefs. That means I'm picking the Packers on Sunday Night Football. My 1A, because I'm picking the Packers, I'll go with Jordan Love over his completions, but I'm saying the Packers, and that's all there is to it. It's a very non-enthusiastic backing of Raybon's non-enthusiastic pick of the Green Bay Packers. Convince Me is presented by Bet365. Bet365 doesn't do ordinary. That's why you get more boosts with them than with anyone else. Every day they power up the odds on hundreds of bets to give you a chance to win more. Bet365 boosts specific markets, your winnings, and even parlays, and they don't stop there. Keep an eye out for their biggest and best odds with the incredible Super Boost. Check out the boost and see why it's never ordinary at Bet365. Must be 21 or older and present in Colorado, Iowa, New Jersey, Louisiana, Ohio, Virginia, or 18 and older in Kentucky. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER or 1-800-BETS-OFF in Iowa. Terms, conditions, restrictions apply. Don't forget, we got our wild card weekend events. Go RSVP. It's free entry, free drinks, free sweating the bets. With me and this entire crew, we got a watch party on Saturday. Shepherd and the Knucklehead, Hoboken, New Jersey. Doors open at 4. We got a watch party, live podcast of the favorites. Doors open at 4. Show is on at 7:30. RSVP in the description page for this show. Download the app to find our picks, the award-winning Action Network app. Also, like and subscribe to the Action Network YouTube page. Touchdown Show is next. Happy New Year. Good luck to everybody.
Thank you, Chad and the whole Convince Me crew, and welcome to week 17 of the Touchdown Show on the Action Network, presented by Bet365. I'm Gilles Gallant. I'm joined every week by Charlie Disturco and Brian Matthews, aka the B-Man. Now, Charlie, final couple weeks of the season, some players, they might sit, and then some players, even though they're out of playoff contention, they may have some contract incentives. So I wanted to ask you, do you think this might be one of the final weeks, where we could see key guys that we value for touchdown bets, or should we just keep it going here? We're going to see lots of good value.
It's interesting. I think that, at the top, we might see these guys go into the negative because of these contract incentives, but that just opens the door for us to do a little bit more digging, do a little bit more trash diving, and coming out with better picks where maybe they need that extra couple of catches and they get that extra touchdown. So I'm excited for the next couple of weeks diving into all these odds. And I'm mostly excited for tonight's Vikings-Packers game because even though it's, maybe not the most sexy game, it is right before the ball drops. It's nothing like Ohio State last year in the college football playoffs where the kick happened at midnight. But at least we'll have something to do to get away from family, friends, and whatever when the ball's about to drop. So, B-Man, I don't know about you, if you're going to be tuning in or if you're just going to have that game on the side while you have to host a New Year's party or whatnot.
Hey, come on, man. Even if I'm hosting a New Year's party, I'm sneaking away for that game. So, yeah, I'll be watching that. I've got a pick in that game I'll dive into a little bit later. So I actually think even though it's, the Jaron Hall show, I think that actually could be a good game.
Yeah, for sure. And a lot of passing offense there could be. We'll dive into that game a little bit more and talk about the touchdown bets that we like for Sunday Night Football. But here's how today's show's gonna go. We're each gonna have 3 or 4 bets. Now, today's slate, 9 games are at the 1 p.m. slate and only 3 games at the 4 p.m. slate. So keep that in mind. when you're placing your bets today that a lot of them may end up at the 1 o'clock slate. So we'll start off with our favorite best bets, and then we're going to kick up the difficulty and we'll get spicy with some long shots. And then, of course, we'll end the show with the anytime touchdown boosted parlay from Bet365. And the touchdown show is presented by Bet365. Bet365 doesn't do ordinary. That's why you get more boosts with them than with anyone else. Every day they power up the odds on hundreds of bets. They give you a chance to win more. Bet365 boosts specific markets, your winnings, and even parlays. And they don't stop there. Keep an eye out for their biggest and best odds with the incredible Super Boost. Check out the boost and see why it's never ordinary at Bet365. 21 plus only or 18 plus in Kentucky and present in Colorado, Iowa, Kentucky, New Jersey, Ohio, Virginia. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER in Colorado, Kentucky, New Jersey, Ohio, Virginia. 1-800-BETS-OFF in Iowa. Terms and conditions and restrictions apply. All right, gentlemen, let's get started and let's immediately go to the Texans-Titans game. And speaking of contract incentives and a player maybe who even has a little mini revenge game spot here is DeAndre Hopkins. And I'm going to take him for an anytime touchdown. Now, I was able to grab him at plus 200. I'm seeing plus 195 out there right now. So he's got 6 touchdowns this year, 18 red zone targets. Will Levis is back this week. I think that's huge because all of Hopkins' touchdowns this year are with Levis. Now, Hopkins is 3 games without a touchdown, but over the last 3 games, 33 targets. And I mentioned the mini revenge game. Again, he's going back to Houston. And then, of course, there's some contract incentives for Hopkins for the remaining 2 games. I think this is important to note because I'm going to talk about this a little bit more later in the show as well. So Hopkins needs 14 more catches for $500,000 in bonuses, and he needs 2 more touchdowns for another $250K in bonuses. So don't think that these players don't know about these incentives. And the Texans, they rank 25th in DVOA to wide receiver 1. So again, I think it would just be fitting for Hopkins to return where he started. Only right that he'll get a touchdown in Houston. So DeAndre Hopkins at plus 200 is my best bet for week 17. Charlie, another top end wide receiver. Who do you like to score in week 17?
Yeah, you can't get me to stop betting these 1 o'clock games because I love that analysis there. But I'm heading out to Buffalo, and this Bills team is probably as well-oiled a machine as we've seen in the entire NFL of late. But there's one guy in particular that, you know, has been kind of a thorn in the side, and that's Stefon Diggs, where I'm going at plus 155 to get an anytime touchdown. I mean, listen, if not now, when? He's a buy low spot for Stefon Diggs, who has 1 touchdown in the last 6 games. You just look at his game log. He hasn't hit 100 yards in what feels like 5 years at this point. So I like this opportunity against a New England defense that is incredibly banged up in the secondary. If you look at their injury report right now, every single defensive back carries a questionable or out tag, and they play man coverage at the 6th highest rate. Well, Stefon Diggs has a 1.8 yards per route run against man. So you would assume that in this spot where the Bills are about 2 touchdown favorites, where they have the opportunity to kind of not stick to their game script of just getting the ball to the running backs and having Josh Allen use his legs, they can get other guys going, a la Diggs, who is probably the loudest and most upset in the room every single time, especially with the success not following suit. So I like the spot here for the Bills to absolutely dominate. I don't mind Diggs for 2+ touchdowns. I think this is a spot where Stefon Diggs goes off. So I'm taking him. Plus 155 is just too much. We never see this with Diggs as far as the number goes.
For sure. And it's really interesting, too, with the Patriots because we know what the Patriots defense does about how they like to take away the top option. That's why they rank number 2 in DVOA versus wide receiver 1. But when you're facing an offense like Buffalo that has so many different weapons, it's like, okay, what do you stop? Do you stop the James Cook pass catching routine? Do you go after Gabe Davis, who has struggled against man coverage? And Stefon Diggs is the one receiver on the Bills who doesn't struggle versus man coverage. So again, the fact that we're getting it at plus 155, plus another thing, just for what it's worth, he did score on this defense when they played last time, even though it was a Patriots upset. So Stefon Diggs is Charlie's best bet for week 17. Another stud wide receiver, though, for the opening best bets. B-Matt, tell us, where are we going now for your best bet for week 17?
Yeah, so I'm not going to overcomplicate this one. I'm going to go Cooper Kupp. I got it at plus 137. I still see a plus 115 number out there right now, but I love the matchup. And if you look back to last week, I mean, Cooper Kupp had 2 opportunities in the end zone inside the 10-yard line. Both of them went off of his fingertips. So look, the point is the volume's there in the important spots. You know, so since week 11, Giants are giving up the 14th most receiving yards to slot receivers. This is just one of those smash spots for Cooper Kupp. We're talking about a 30% first read share with single high coverage, which that's what he's playing against today. So I expect this to be a huge game for Cooper Kupp. So I'm going to go ahead, lock in Cooper Kupp for pick number 1 at plus 137. Again, plus 115 or plus 120 might be out there still.
B-Matt, I feel like the salt in the wound is still fresh from that game last time when I think we were both on Cooper Kupp to score a touchdown and just dropping those easy ones. And then Puka Nacua obviously is able to get in. But yeah, Kupp, the fact that he was even around plus 140 to start the week against this Giants team that has struggled, it just plays a lot of man coverage, and Cooper Kupp pretty much eats that up, right? So I'm just shocked that we were able to get it at those odds. Anything over plus money, I think, is a smash spot for Cooper Kupp in this matchup. I like it so much. Like I bet a unit on earlier in the week once you did too. So
let's go. All
right, so those are the best bets for week 17. Now let's kick it up a notch and let's move to our second best bets of week 17. Charlie, why don't you take it home? What do we got?
We're heading out to Arizona against Philadelphia, and we're going to target a tight end that has been used plenty of times on this show. And that's Trey McBride at plus 275 against the Eagles. They are very vulnerable to the tight end position. You look at DVOA, they're 27th against the tight end. They're 23rd in DVOA over passes in the middle of the field. And what has Trey McBride done extremely well? Well, he's just been a target hog of late. You look at just every single target that he's gotten. He's getting about 8 to 12 with this offense. He's coverage proof. It doesn't matter if it's man defense or zone defense, whatever you throw at him, he has a 1.8 yards per route run rate or higher. And since week 8, so this is like when, as you look into the numbers more, and when Kyler comes back, well, I guess right before Kyler comes back and Trey McBride kind of takes over with Ertz out, you look at the numbers, and McBride has the 3rd most red zone targets among all tight ends in the NFL inside the 10, and that's 5, but he has just 1 touchdown in the last 7 games. So for a guy that's averaging about 9 targets per game in that span since week 8, where we saw his role expand, yet we see no touchdowns. And now Hollywood Brown is out for the season. I think at plus 275, where it's still available out there in the market, it's too much to pass up against an Eagles defense that struggles against the tight end position, and in a game where Arizona is going to be passing a lot as nearly 2 touchdown underdogs. So I love this spot for Trey McBride. I'm hoping he gets us on the board after not being able to in recent history.
Yeah, I think the reason, Charlie, why we're even getting 275, especially in a matchup as you just described, that where the Eagles have just struggled against tight ends all year, is because he hasn't gotten into the end zone. If he had scored in any of those weeks, we'd probably be looking at 200, maybe even less than plus 200, because you have pretty much laid it out. There is so much volume for Trey McBride right now. And in a matchup, like you had said, where even against the Niners, he didn't score, but he still saw like 10 targets, 120 yards, and the Cardinals were pretty much biffing the ball the entire second half, which is why they were able to score a couple of garbage time touchdowns. I think it was just a luck that we weren't able to get Trey McBride to score that week. So again, now facing the Eagles, the Cardinals have nothing to play for. They're just trying to get the ball down the field. The fact that we've got Trey McBride at plus 275, I think it's a pretty solid pick, especially, I mean, he was plus 240 last week against a pretty tough Bears defense, as opposed to this week against the Eagles, where it's a little bit easier of a matchup.
Yeah.
All right. Now B-Matt, Saints pass catchers.
Oh gosh.
How do we feel about it? And what are we doing this week with it?
I feel like I have this conversation with you all the time.
Every week.
Me and you have a side conversation, say we're done with the Saints pass catchers, man. We are done. And inevitably, each week we come back and one of us submits a Saints pass catcher. So, look, I'm not going to get too cute with this one. I'm going to go Chris Olave, anytime touchdown at plus 230. So I just look at the matchup, right? And if you look at Olave's recent production, he's got 94 or more receiving yards in 3 of his last 4 games. 3 of those games were 100, or 4 of his last 5 games. 3 of those were 100-plus yard games. Okay, so now they're going up against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, who they can stop the run. But one thing they do is they give up a ton of yardage to perimeter wide receivers, which that's Chris Olave territory. So I just think this is a matchup where if you look at historically how teams have had success against the Bucks, it's not on the ground, in the inside the 10, it's passing the ball. So I just think the volume in his recent string of production at plus 230, I really like Chris Olave today against the Bucks. So I'm going to make that my second pick officially.
For sure. And I think one thing too about the Saints is they got spanked the last time these two
Yes.
teams played. And, there is a little bit of divisional aspect here. Like pretty much, I think the Saints have to win today if they want any chance to make the
Right.
playoffs in the NFC. But also the fact that even like Rashid Shaheed, who has emerged in this offense, the fact that you're still getting Chris Olave at plus 220, that's an indictment on Derek Carr, because
Yes.
Chris Olave is probably a top 10 as far as talent and a wide receiver. He's got an incredible ADOT. He gets the targets. He's got moves.
Yes.
It's just the fact that right now you have Derek Carr throwing the ball. Like if Taysom was actually at the red zone, I would actually probably trust it a little bit more than with what we've seen from Derek Carr this season. So, but at the same time, Chris Olave in this offense against this defense, he should score almost every time. So the fact that we're getting a plus 220, again, very solid spot for you, B-Matt, for your second best bet of week 17. All right, I'm going to look at this Commanders Niners team. You want to talk about a team that we can't quit, like with Saints pass catchers. I can't quit Commanders pass catchers. And it may be just because it's the Sam Howell effect of what we talked about with Nick Mullins, of whether or not he's a chucker or a slinger. Sam Howell was definitely a chucker. I'm not really as sure about Jacoby Brissett if he's a chucker, but I do trust that he will look for Curtis Samuel to score a touchdown this week. So I was able to get Curtis Samuel at plus 400. Now, Samuel has got 5 touchdowns this year. He leads the team in red zone targets, 7 targets inside the 10. That also leads the team. Also 4 red zone carries. So it shows with Samuel how they move him around, like to use him like a gadget player, like another guy with the last name Samuel. Obviously, he's not as talented as Debo, but we talked about this a lot, though, about how the 49ers, maybe I've been talking about it a lot and you guys have just been listening, but the 49ers struggle dealing with speedy slot receivers. Like Zay Flowers, he got into the end zone last week on them. We saw Tyler Boyd score on them. Jordan Addison, Mike Evans was in the slot when he scored on this defense. So Jacoby Brissett, I think at quarterback, even though he did pop up on the injury report this week, I think he still will play. But we're probably not going to see those costly interceptions in the red zone as well, like what we would see with Sam Howell. That was kind of like the gift and the curse of betting on touchdown scores with the Commanders. So Curtis Samuel at plus 400 is my second best bet for week 17. I also would just mention, for what it's worth, these two teams, they did play late last year, and Brock Purdy, I think it was his third start. And all the Commanders wide receivers scored, including Samuel. It was all garbage time mostly, but at the same time, they still count. So I feel like we're getting nice value here around plus 400, especially when I'm looking now at the odds board and seeing as low as plus 250 out there for Curtis Samuel. So Curtis Samuel, second best bet of week 17. Now let's move to Sunday Night Football. Let's talk about Packers Vikings, NFC North. The over-under at 46. Vikings slight home favorites. Let's look at the touchdown odds for this game. And right now we have Ty Chandler at even odds to score, running back for the Vikings, followed by Justin Jefferson at plus 120. You've got Aaron Jones at plus 160. Now, Christian Watson is still listed at Bet365. He has already been pretty much ruled doubtful. He's not going to play. So that's why you have Jaden Reed right next to him at plus 162, and along with Romeo Doubs at plus 187. And then you've got Jordan Addison at plus 187. Dontavian Wicks, he is questionable as well coming to this game. A lot of players that actually I would say on both sides are questionable. Now, looking at these touchdown odds, for me, the first guy, I wouldn't even want to be betting anybody that's in that top 8, except maybe like Romeo Doubs. And the main reason why I would look at Romeo Doubs is just how he has performed without Christian Watson in this offense. So he scored last week after a 5-game drought. Watson wasn't playing now and leads the team with 8 touchdowns and 15 red zone targets. But the thing about the Vikings defense, guys, play zone at a high rate, 7th highest rate in the NFL, and they blitz a ton. So Dobbs leads the Packers with 3 touchdowns versus zone, and you see all of his receiving metrics like ADOT, yards per route run, first read percentage, all those good things that we like to look at for touchdown props, all those go up when he's facing zone defense. And he has 4 of his 6 touchdowns. He has 4 touchdowns in 6 games without Christian Watson this year. So Romeo Doubs is who I like for the Packers. I'll tell who I like for the Vikings here in a second, but Charlie, is there anybody on the Packers side that you're looking at for a touchdown scorer?
Yeah, it's funny because last week I was talking to you guys in the chat and I'm like, oh, Aaron Jones is getting so much volume. And then what happens? He does, but he gets down at the 1-yard line.
Yeah.
Dylan punches it in. Jordan Love gets it in. And I apologize to me, Matt, already for jinxing his Aaron Jones
Mush.
touchdown last week. I mushed it. But this week, I think is a good opportunity to also back him at plus 175, as
Yeah.
high as that out there in the market. He's going to get a lot of volume. He's going to get 20 plus touches in what is a do or die game for the Packers. So when it comes to just the Packers side of things, I think Aaron Jones is my favorite play. It's a little bit chalky, but just based on volume, based on availability, and him in recent history not getting in the end zone of late, I'm going Aaron Jones on the Packers side, and then there's a couple of Vikings that I'm eyeing as well.
So, B-Matt, before I ask you who you like on the Packers, because I think that might actually have something to do with one of your spicy touchdown bets, is there anyone that you like on the Vikings side?
Yeah, so I've kind of got my eye on one player. I mean, a lot of the guys that, their odds aren't that great, especially with a new quarterback. I'm looking at Jaren Hall, though. I mean, this guy can run. Like, this guy can run.
Let's
I like
go.
Jaren. I like it. So he's someone I looked at earlier, in the week. I remember, when he first played, didn't get a whole game, but man, he was going out and he was moving the ball. So I think he might sneak one in. So I kind of like Jaren Hall, at least on the Vikings side.
And he got down. What was it? He got hurt on that second drive of the game.
Falcons.
Yep.
On a sneaker, on a draw or a run. I think it was a drop back draw, but he ran and got down at the 1 yard line. So he has shown a propensity to run and use his legs, and he's a big body. I love that play too.
Yeah. So
Perfect.
that's on the Vikings side.
All right, so Jaren Hall, and then for Viking side for me, I'm looking at KJ Osborne. I was able to grab it at 5-1. I'm seeing a 4-1 out there right now. Look, Addison, he might be limited. He didn't practice a lot this week. The other thing too, when Addison wasn't playing last week, Osborne immediately filled in, caught a touchdown, plays over 85% of the snaps. But the Vikings receivers is who I think we need to look at, because both starting corners are out. Jair Alexander's suspended. The other one's hurt. Safety is hurt as well. There's other defenders that are doubtful or questionable. So if Jaren Hall is able to even have any semblance of throwing the ball and not turning it over the way Nick Mullins was last week, I think KJ Osborne is looking good to be able to get a touchdown in this game. So I'll have a video that comes out a little bit later, kind of breaking down my 2 picks for this game. You can check for that on social media and our Action Network YouTube page. But now let's move to our spicy touchdown bets. And I kind of hinted towards B-Matt's first pick that he likes for this game. So B-Matt, why don't you tell us, what do you like for a spicy bet for week 17?
Yeah, so look, all this guy has done is score touchdowns as of late. I'm going to go with Jaden Reed. So I'm going to go a quarter unit on both of the spicy picks. So a quarter unit on Jaden Reed, first touchdown score at plus 950. Look, I love everything about this kid's game. Like, he's getting a lot of targets in the red zone. Not only that, they're giving him carries in the red zone too. So they're scheming up ways to get him involved where it really matters. He's got a touchdown in 5 of his last 6 games. Yeah, and again, that's rushing and receiving touchdowns. So I like the fact that he's got a multifaceted game, that the Packers clearly know that he is a playmaker and, can make some plays for them as far as down in the red zone. So look, a touchdown in 5 of his last 6. I played his first touchdown score, I think 2 weeks ago, and it hit for me. So I had a little sentimental reason for that. So first pick, I'm going to go a quarter unit there. And then second pick, I'm going to go a quarter unit on my favorite player this week, and that's Nico Collins. I use the term pot committed a lot, but this is probably the most pot committed I've been to one player all year long, which doesn't scare me or anything. So look, I'm going to go Nico Collins, 2+ touchdowns at plus 1,000. I just think this is an absolute smash spot for Nico Collins. I think, we got a low line initially because he's been catching passes from Case Keenum, but this is a guy who's had 3 games with at least 146 receiving yards. He had 191 receiving yards against the Broncos a few weeks back, and that was his last game with CJ Stroud. And again, most importantly, CJ Stroud is back. There's no Tank Dell. So with CJ Stroud back, so is his ceiling. So look, I love Nico Collins, played his yards and his escalators, and I am again going to put a quarter unit on 2+ touchdowns at plus 100. I just love the spot for Nico.
For sure. Nico, I think is we even talked about it, that you think from a receiving yard standpoint, he's going to have a pretty big day too. I think you were considering of whether or not he might lead the day for receiving yards.
I logged that one. Yes. And plus 5,000. It's plus 2,000 now, but I love this spot for him.
Wow. Yeah. And especially, he's going to have probably a pretty big day just with the way that CD looked last week, or yesterday rather. But that being said, he could very much in this offense, just with the way that CJ Stroud floats all boats. So I think Nico Collins is a very solid look here. Jaden Reed too, I think is just a revelation for Green Bay, especially with how much, even though Christian Watson was able to get some touchdowns later in the year, how much he struggled earlier in the year. I think Jaden Reed was able to really seize that opportunity. And like you said, they designed plays for him in those red zone territories, right, where he could just take a sweep. And he's so fast that he's just difficult. He's one of the few players that can get around the edge. So, yeah, Jaden Reed, solid look there at plus 950 for first touchdown of Sunday Night Football. All right, so I've got two touchdown bets. One in the afternoon slate, another one for the 1 p.m. slate. So we took this guy last week. I had him for Secret Santa for Charlie. Now, he only got 1 touchdown, but I got to go back to him. I'm going back to DK Metcalf for 2 touchdowns at 12-1. And then I'm going to take DeAndre Hopkins. You talk about pot committed, B-Matt. I'm going to pot commit to Hopkins this week. I was able to give it at 17-1 for 2 touchdowns for Hopkins. It's around 16-1. I would still play it at that. So it's a quarter unit on each player. Now, Metcalf, we had this bet last week, but he did catch a touchdown. A pretty solid matchup versus the Steelers. 21 passing touchdowns allowed this year, 8 over the last 4 games. And DK Metcalf has actually played pretty well against man defense, which is what the Steelers play the most of their top 7 team playing man coverage. And all of his metrics go up when facing man compared to zone. You know, the first read rate, the ADOTs, the yards per route run, the target share. And he also leads the Seahawks with the most touchdowns versus man. So DK Metcalf for 2 touchdowns is my first part. But Hopkins, I already talked about it at the start, but I'll go into it a little bit more here. He had a 3 touchdown game this year. And that was against a team that played a ton of zone, which, again, a lot of contract incentives to have a big game here. 4 touchdowns versus zone coverage, only 2 versus man. And I'm going to bank that he gets almost all his incentives just in this game, and then he just chills next week versus Jacksonville. So Metcalf and Hopkins for 2 touchdowns each at 12-1 and 17-1 are my spicy bets for week 17. Charlie, take us home. What do you got for spicy for week 17?
Yeah, sticking to my typical brand, it's a 2+ touchdown score and then an anytime touchdown from a tight end that's above 6-1. So the 2+ is AJ Brown at 8-1, and then Durham Smythe, 650 to score an anytime touchdown. Those are my 2 plays. I'll start with AJ Brown. I think this is a smash spot for him. He's playing Arizona, and they're 31st in DVOA to pass, 30th to wide receiver ones. We've seen Tank Dell go 8-149-1. We've seen Amari Cooper go 5-139-1. Kupp had 150-1, and Jamar Chase had 3 touchdowns. I had him as an anytime touchdown all the way back in the touchdown show back then. So I just think this is a great spot for AJ Brown, who, similar to Stephon Diggs, is kind of a diva, kind of a squeaky wheel type guy. He said he has 0 touchdowns in the last 4. So, you know, he has 2 touchdown games this season. I think this is the spot where, you know, Philly doesn't have to rely on Jalen Hurts' legs, and he can just throw it downfield, and AJ Brown's going to catch it and absolutely shred this defense. And then Durham Smythe, you know, I kind of love this play. Like, the last couple of weeks, we've seen a usage bump out of him. He's got 9 receptions in the last 2 games. If you look at his 5 games prior to that, he had 9 receptions as well. So we're seeing in just 2 games them starting to use him more, put a little bit of emphasis on the tight end position. There's no Jalen Waddle. There's no Raheem Mostert now as well.
Yeah.
So that's just more opportunities where Mostert can't just vulture every single thing inside the 10-yard line. That's where Durham is going to get his money in the short game in that red zone opportunity. So, and we've seen Baltimore, they've quietly struggled against the tight end position. You know, in the first half of the season, they were solid, but from week 10 on, they've given up about 5.5 receptions and 70 yards per game to the tight end. We saw Kittle absolutely shred them last week, 2 touchdowns in the last 4. I mean, I love this spot for them. You know, the Bucs have, you know, Smythe around like maybe plus 400, 450 across the board, but there's 1 650 out there, and that's where I'm targeting Durham Smythe to get a touchdown. He's not going to gritty like Gesicki, but you know, tight ends touchdowns just still feel the same.
Yeah, the AJ Brown 2+ I think is still a solid look, especially against Arizona. But yeah, I feel like we almost need to maybe even like create a new segment called like the squeaky wheel segment, like where it's like this guy is due or this guy hasn't scored. He's been bitching on the sideline, like that kind of thing. Almost like a keep it up a report of like, here's the latest thing that AJ Brown said about Jalen Hurts and why he's going to score 2. yeah, exactly.
Those 2 basically.
And then Smythe, he hasn't scored a touchdown yet this year, but like you said, Baltimore has started to struggle as far as yards and catches when stopping tight ends. I'm always a little fearful of taking tight ends against Baltimore with Roquan Smith roaming around there, but against Smythe, I think it's a solid look, especially with how shorthanded now the Dolphins are going to be going into Baltimore. All right, now let's talk about the anytime touchdown boosted parlay. And one of those players is actually from that Miami Baltimore game. So today, what we're going to do is the two players we're going to choose for the anytime touchdown boosted parlay are Tyreek Hill, and we're going to pair him with Jonathan Taylor. Now, the odds pre-boost were around plus 260. Bet365, they did us a solid, boosted it up to plus 300. Now, Tyreek, I mean, he was, up until the ankle injury, he was the front runner for Offensive Player of the Year. I don't really feel like I have to go too deep into why I think Tyreek is good. I mean, he has 12 touchdowns this year. He's pretty much matchup proof. It is shown now in this offense that he's not just a deep threat. Tua will look for him inside the 10-yard line. So I think we don't really have to go too deep into why we like Tyreek Hill to score. And for what it's worth, when they did play Baltimore last year, he did score 2 touchdowns. Now, Jonathan Taylor looks as good as he did in his second season. It's just the Colts offense is just a bit of a mess when you got Gardner Minshew, a quarterback. Like, he's still getting the goal line work. I just don't trust Gardner to throw the ball. I mean, how many times have we fallen on our face trying to bet Pittman and Downs and Mo Alley Cox vulturing us kind of thing. So, and there's no Zach Moss. So, I mean, I think Taylor could see close to 20 carries on a defense that I think he could score pretty easily on. So Tyreek Hill and Jonathan Taylor are the two legs for the anytime touchdown boosted parlay. Charlie, what do you think of this parlay?
Yeah, I love it. It's good for me because I need Tyreek Hill to get some receiving yards and a touchdown because I have him to lead the league. And then all of a sudden CeeDee Lamb comes out yesterday and puts up, 220. But Taylor, like you said, it's going to be a high volume game. Last week we saw, when they handed it to him every single time when they were inside the 10, basically. Wow. Steichen just tripled down on it, didn't give Josh Downs an opportunity at his home state. But I love this one. You don't have to tell me twice about two high volume guys that should see, at least 3 to 5 targets / touches inside the red zone on today.
B-Matt, what are you thinking of this parlay? Would you consider maybe even doing like a multi-touchdown parlay for these guys? Or do you think it's just one that they would be able to get in these matchups?
I might do 2. Look, yeah. I love these two guys. I mean, like you talked about it. We don't actually have to explain much on Hill and Jonathan Taylor, right? Like, they're both playing, they're both healthy. The counterpart that they have is not going to play, Jalen Waddle, Jonathan Taylor, or pardon me, Zach Moss. So look, these are smash spots for both. So I'm in, and I might look at the 2+ and see what that is.
Yeah, I mean, if you were in a coma for the entire year and you just woke up and you're like, why is Tyreek Hill and Jonathan Taylor part of the boost? Yeah, okay, like, I get it.
Yeah,
I will explain all of what happened this year and get you up to speed. But for most of the people who watch and are pretty familiar with football, I'm pretty sure they'd be pretty familiar with Tyreek Hill and Jonathan Taylor at this stage of their betting career. All right, so that is the anytime touchdown boosted parlay. Tyreek Hill, Jonathan Taylor boosted from plus 260 to plus 300 from Bet365. And the Touchdown Show is presented by Bet365. Bet365 doesn't do ordinary. That's why you get more boosts with them than with anyone else. Every day they power up the odds on hundreds of bets to give you a chance to win more. Bet365 boosts specific markets, your winnings, and even parlays. And they don't stop there. Keep an eye out for their biggest and best odds with the incredible Super Boost. Check out the boost and see why it's never ordinary at Bet365. 21 plus only or 18 plus in Kentucky and present in Colorado, Iowa, Kentucky, New Jersey, Ohio, Virginia. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER in Colorado, Kentucky, New Jersey, Ohio, Virginia, or 1-800-BETS-OFF in Iowa. Terms and conditions and restrictions apply. Also, I should mention, we have a very exciting wildcard weekend coming up. You can sweat your bets with the Action Network crew at our watch party on Saturday, January 13th. You can join our guys, Chris Raybon, Sean Koerner, Stuckey will be there. I'm probably going to be there. Then on Sunday, we're going to have another live edition of the Favorites podcast, all taking place at the Shepherd and the Knucklehead in Hoboken, New Jersey. Click the links below in the YouTube description, or you can go to eventbrite.com and search the Favorites to RSVP. All right, that's all for today, gentlemen. 4 picks from me, 4 picks from Charlie. We got 4 picks from Brian. We're going to see you next Sunday at 11:30 a.m. Eastern as part of the Action Network Power Hour for the final week of the regular season in Week 18. Now, if you missed Convince Me, you could rewatch the show. or download the Action Network app. You can get all of our picks in one place. I would recommend that because the bets that I gave out today is probably only about a third of the actual bets that I have for week 17. You can also check out all the week 17 touchdown bets from myself, Charlie, BMAT, all of us in the Action app. So I want to thank you for watching the Touchdown Show presented by Bet365. Bonne chance.